And I think it'll ask you, do you want to, I don't know if it'll ask you something or not. Did it?
No.
Nope. It didn't ask you if it was okay to record you.
Yes,
Yeah,
it did.
Okay. Good, good. So just to give you a little bit of background, don't know how much you know about my podcast, but I am in recovery. I was a dopehead and alcoholic for too many years. And in January, it will make 9 that I have not been.
Wow,
And
genetics, because you look none the worse for wear, man.
well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And majority of my podcast is 12-step stories on people getting well through using 12 steps. But I also like to have mix in some people who also have other things. Life happens, right? And to have ways to continue to Bill Wilson, Alcoholics Anonymous podcast. Alcoholics Anonymous big book is what we call it, talks about enlarging our spiritual life. And I like to invite guests that do that, or have guests on that do that. And it sounds like well, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but our intimacy and our sex life is a big piece of that. It really is. And Bill in 1939 made a part of his inventory that we do on ourselves included a sexual inventory, which I thought was super forward thinking back in that time, because you did not talk, you did it like rabbits, but you didn't you didn't talk about it. And the fact of the matter is, it's a big piece of what we do what we do in life, whether if it's been bad or good, or can have a huge effect on your countenance. It's a piece of life. So so I like to have people come in and talk about other things rather than my 12-step stories. That is my baseline thing.
Mix it up a little bit.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and of course also, Dan, how we can support this today in the conversation. The recovery is all about coming back to wholeness. And the wholeness of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual being. And so what we bring today is so, really supports that so much. We all have our, smaller or bigger addictions. None of us is actually exempt. It's an illusion that some do and some don't.
Yeah.
And so the bigger question then is, how can we connect with our life force to fuel and to embellish who we are becoming? And so in that sense, it's also in your podcast description, you have something about the juicy.
Bring about the juice in life.
Yeah.
Yep. Hooking up with that juice in your life so that you can make the most of your trip on this big blue marble.
Big blue marble. I like that. Yes. Excuse me.
And it's all about aliveness. We can live life like as if we were already dead, or pacified, or we can live life in an alive, vital way.
Yeah. Yep. That's the whole word recovery. I've looked up some definitions of it, and my favorite is to regain that which was lost or stolen. And in life, that just seems to be part of the deal. Is and I almost think that's the maybe a baseline piece of life, is that you're going to go through struggles, and you're going to give yourself away, and you're going to detach from yourself, and you're going to do things in order to survive. And in this recovery thing, it is reattaching to that. It is reaching for the real me, the soul, the spirit, the essence that is Dan, that there's not another one in the world like me, and getting back attached to me so that I can move forward in a life of being Dan. And then subsequent to that is also my next mission is to help people do the same thing.
Mm.
because it just seems to, I don't know. It almost seems like what was it? Dang it, I've lost his name. The Hero's Journey.
Yes,
Joseph
yeah.
Campbell. That our job is here is to come out and defeat our dragon, and
Mhm.
teach other people how to defeat the same dragon we defeated.
Yeah, yeah, like you say, we all kind of come from the same cloth, searching to find our happiness and be safe and feel love. And, like you're doing, creating a space for people to come to themselves. You're just offering a space, so step on in. So thank you, man, for your platform.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The majority of my life force today goes in that direction since I've gotten sober, and I first walked into 12-step recovery in 2011, and it was in a very self-centered manner. I just wanted to get my own stuff back on track, and I thought I could do it my way. And I spent 4 years, banging against the halls and walls of AA, trying to do that. And I had a man tell me that, and it's kind of funny because I bought it more of jest, but I have a crystal ball today.
Nah.
And that man that talked to me that day saw through me. He saw that I was just playing games with the thing. And one of the things he said was, I think, Dan, you're going to end up in jail or dead until you start beginning to take this thing seriously. And I still remember that, and he was pretty close to right, because I got myself in some trouble, and I faced 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections as a result of my continuing to use. I was breaking in houses, stealing pain pills, and doing whatever I could do to support my habit. And today I have my own crystal ball because I have recovered and I have moved forward in life, and you can kind of see people, and a lot of people out there are suffering. They don't know where to turn. They don't know how to.
Like you've done, make up their mind, and they get to the end of the road, and it's like do or die, and they settle in and follow the rules and of how your program is laid out. Then they're ready to take on more, because at whatever level one is, they're doing the same process. We work with people all the time in what we do, and they come into our work and they have an intention of what they want to create in their life, whether it's a relationship or a job that they love or a place that's inspiring to them to live. And it coming from that there's nobody out there but ourselves creating our life. It's really starting to learning how to get out of our own way. So our work is about developing what we call this witness process.
Let's do
I like that.
into the
We'll
conversation.
put that we're in the conversation right now.
I know. Oh, we are in the. Oh, you are already.
He's recording. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're recording. I have learned over my podcasting career that you hit the record button quick, because if we sit around chit chat, we'll miss some of that.
Right.
Okay, wonderful. We wanted to ask you and I sent you this in the email this morning, if we could share with the audience towards the end of the conversation a gift, which is
Absolutely.
called an introduction to sexual meditation, so that people can out of this conversation that opens things up for people, that they then can go to that video class and learn the actual practices that we are alluding to in our conversation with you. So it has more impact for them and brings it into their own life. It's not just a conversation that sounds interesting, but what am I going to do now? Unless we put it into practice or take the first step in practice, then it just stays like an intellectual understanding.
Yes, and I do have the email right in front of me, and definitely will be sharing that with it.
Great, thank you.
As I take a broad swipe when Bill says in Alcoholics Anonymous book to continue to enlarge your spiritual life, because at first, when I first come here, I thought it was talking about religion, and I realized, and that's off-putting. That's probably the biggest hurdle to people moving into something. I realized, and I had a teacher that made me understand that it's really about the spirit that's inside of me, that's the spirit I'm trying to enlarge upon. And that's why when I saw what you guys were bringing to the table, it felt right for our podcast and our listeners.
Yeah, we don't come from any dogma, religious dogma. We go right to the spirit part, and anybody in a body can get that because we're all coming from the same place there. So anyway, we've had our institute here in Chicago for 23 years now, TantraNova Institute, working and teaching people, couples and singles all over the world, how to employ sexual meditation as a way to get out of our own way, as I mentioned earlier, and see what we don't see about what we're doing to create what we're getting, to begin to move with grace, ease, and flow towards that thing we most deeply desire. And we can get into the nuts and bolts of, if you excuse the pun, the nuts and bolts of how
yeah, let's get into it. Again, in my teaching, sex is a huge thing of being a human being, and not getting needs met. And there's another thing that I know for a fact that, and you said sexual meditation, and I don't know what you're talking about exactly right there, but I do know that I coach my people, and I have personally experienced it, that just flat out meditation with my partner is a magical thing. If you can just sit and meditate with, I learned to meditate in a group to begin with, and I felt the power and what's behind that.
Yeah, you tuned into your spirit. Yeah. So, okay,
you want us just keep going?
Yeah, just keep on rolling. Let me dump out your brains.
Well, all right. So we could introduce ourselves.
Okay,
that'd be good.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll take it from there. So Dan, I was first introduced to
your name.
Do you want to do this, or you want me to do this?
My name is Dan, and I'm an alcoholic.
My name is Freddy Zental Weaver, and I'm a tall, thin black man. I live in Chicago, and I've been working with my partner and beloved and wife here for the last 22 years, running and working with people doing TantraNova practices in seminars, individuals, with couples and singles. I was first introduced to these practices that we teach, a core curriculum of it, when I was 13 years old. I was living in Hawaii, going through my puberty, spending a lot of time in the shower, as a lot of guys do at that age. And my father at the time, I was lucky to have somehow created him as my father. He was a practicing psychiatrist and gave me a book to read on how to integrate sex and meditation. Wow.
Wow.
Loved it. My girlfriend loved it. And more than that, though, I had this dream, this hope, this wish to go on to college on athletic scholarship, but didn't believe that I could get the recognition or the skills or training in living in Hawaii. Well, the practices assisted me in getting out of that and shifting that belief to move towards that thing that I wanted. I went on to college on athletic scholarship. Not that I didn't do everything that everybody else would do to do that. It's just it wasn't suffering. It wasn't with disbelief. It was belief, and it was ease and flow, and it all came. After college, I kept doing these practices and exercises in my personal life and applying them in my relationships and going to workshops and reading books. I was in the software business for a long time in San Francisco. And it was fun when I started, but after about 15 years, it was just a job. So looking for what I knew about being enrolled and engaged and enlivened in my own life, and I was looking for an opportunity to move from San Francisco. And so something opened up in Chicago. I'd never lived here before, so it was a new city, and gone to college with some guys and played ball with some guys from Chicago. So the company hired me, moved me here. That's 22 years ago. I'm still in the software business. Looking for a Shakti, a female tantra partner, and Elsbeth showed up, and she was on her own tantric journey. She'll tell you about. Well, we met, and 6 months to the day we met, we pooled our resources and created this work, and we both left our respective businesses, and this is all we've been doing for the last 22 years: books, television, and so on. And it's the greatest gift that I could give to myself and to the world in terms of the best thing that I could be doing to make a difference in people's lives and my own life.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Once I latched on to, and it's a little humbling to say it, but to latch on to this power within helping other people. I don't know if there's any power any greater than that when you have this opportunity. You think that you're working, you're making money, you're doing the things that you did in your software business and all that, and there's a little piece of that that's helping people because they're getting what you're doing. But when you start focusing really on helping people get better, there's nothing that raises my vibration more than that. And man, I hope I do not. Elsbeth, is that the way it's said? Because I thought when I first saw it, I thought there might be an I missing in the podcast in the email.
You totally got it, man. It's perfect.
Cool.
So sorry for coughing over here.
Hey, that's part of the human condition too. We get sick. We get stuff happens to us.
Oh. So yeah, so my name is Elsbeth Meuth, but my story then is quite different from Freddy's. I wish I would have had a dad who would have given me a book on sex consciousness when I was a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Far from it. I'm one of 10 children and grew up with a very strict dad. And as you can tell probably from my accent, I didn't grow up here in the United States. I was born and raised in Germany and then came to the United States in my late 20s for postgraduate work in music. And then a few years later, I moved on to get my doctorate in education. And then I moved into management consulting. And so that was in the 90s. I hadn't gotten really good at consulting. However, I was really despaired in relationship, intimate relationship. I had this pattern of attracting unavailable men. And while that was quite exciting at certain moments, most of the time I was alone. And there was a time, a very vivid time I can remember when I, noticed that if I was not going to change that trajectory of attracting unavailability, I would end up without lasting intimacy in my life before I would leave this planet. And I didn't want to settle for that. So I put myself on a path, delved first deeply into meditation practice, and then into learning and studying Tantra as a discipline, not just as, reading a book here or there. So really immersed myself in the Tantric practice and the Tantric healing. And it was quite life-changing for me. Because what opened up for me through that healing, through that immersion, was that I discovered that I had held distrust towards men. And while I was not aware of, and if you had known me at the time, 25 years ago, you would not have called me a distrusting bitch. I mean, I was charming. I was reeling the guys in. I was inviting. But underneath, in the subconscious, there was something that was not visible to my conscious mind. So I didn't see anything, All I saw was the result I got of unavailability. And so it harkened back this whole, opening to a time that I was reminded of in the healing ritual of the tantric practice when I was 18 years old. First boyfriend, first love. We had a very blissful relationship. And then one day he asked me to have intercourse. And I said yes, although I was not ready. And it was freakingly painful. And then I had to go to the gynecologist, and the bill from the gynecologist went to my house. My dad opened it, and all hell broke loose. You can imagine. With my strict dad, and he called me a whore.
Oh, wow.
And then a few weeks later, the boyfriend left the relationship.
Mm.
And there I was all by myself, alone, no soul to turn to. And at that moment, I made a decision. You know, it's this kind of decision that we make in the moment when we need to cope with something. So it's not a conscious decision, but something that just has us at that moment, which was for me, see, Elsbeth, men are not there for you when you need them. And while that was so at that time, this decision trailed me into my young adulthood and then into my adulthood. And no wonder that I attracted an availability, because that was further proof to see, Elsbeth, men are not there when you really need them. You know, these unavailable men were there for certain moments, but most of the time they weren't. So what opened up instead through that tantric healing was deeper trust in myself, and then deeper trust in men in general. And then 6 months later, Freddy Zental came into my life. And you know, I believe I would not have recognized him as a potential partner. I mean, I would have seen him. You know, he's tall, he's black. He told you a moment ago, he's a tall black man, handsome, all of that. But as a potential partner, if I had not done my work around that availability issue, I would not have recognized him because he was available. And if I had not done that unavailability work, there wouldn't have been that, you know, attraction.
Right.
And that's a great story because it really illustrates kind of what we all do in terms of these decided experiences that we have in our life. So in the surface, you really wanted to be in relationship, but in the background, unconscious to your awareness, you were wanting to be right about there's no available men, because that was an intense situation when you were young.
Yeah. Yeah. You block it.
Yeah. Block it.
Unconsciously.
So the work that we do with working with sexual meditation, as you said, meditation is powerful on its own. But when we're in a sexual state, whether we're doing consciousness work or not, we're in an altered state of consciousness. We have more endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, the feel-good hormones are flowing. We're more loving, open, vulnerable, receptive. Now, when you work with it the way we're sharing in terms of meditation, there's breath awareness practices that we teach, there's energetic awareness practices that we teach, and there's intention in a meditation, sexual meditation. Like, I want to create a lasting relationship, for instance, for Elsbeth. So in that altered state, in that vulnerable, altered, intimate state, we are more receptive to what we don't see running in the background. Oh, I've been looking for unavailability to be right about. That shows up as an experience, not just a story or analytical analysis. And so that's what we've seen for people who have come to this work, whether they're big meditators or familiar or not. They just do what we ask them to do through a 3-day workshop, and they get results. Because this altered state, it's like drugs are an altered state. And oftentimes, as you can probably talk about, Dan, we all can, that, we drink or do drugs to get away from a headache or a tough day or something we don't see running in the background around something that is disease for us. It's like it's a diseaseness, and so using sexual meditation in that altered state consciously, we can use it in a conscious way to get past a lot of things we don't see.
Yeah.
And that's new for people because they think, oh, well, forever we've been procreating. That's what you do, create life. In the last 100 or so years, recreating with the development of contraceptives. And what we're teaching is how to co-create with this intelligent energy.
Yeah.
Let's build a little bit further on, that we make a distinction between sex and sexual energy. Sex is the act. Sexual energy is the life force. Of course, that life force is involved in having sex, no question. But this act of sex is just one dimension of this. This is not the whole thing. And And then, of course, also, like when we speak about sex, we often focus very much on the physical,
Right.
Which is wonderful. However, again, it's just the first level. So what about connecting my sex with my heart consciously? I mean, we speak of falling in love, particularly for women. Once they had sex with a guy, they get confused because they think it's all love, And it may be, I'm not saying it couldn't, but women are more connected between their heart and their sex than men necessarily. And there's nothing good or bad about it. It's just also in the tantric practice and the sexual meditation really leads a man to integrate his sex with his heart. So the physical sexual with the love and the heart energy. So, and in our work, we really work with 4 dimensions that we all call different levels of intimacy. So back to the sexual physical intimacy, then there's emotional intimacy. Let's say here, there's mental intimacy, and there's spiritual, universal, like cosmic intimacy. And the beauty of the tantric practice, and perhaps we should mention that for people, what tantra is. We mention it here so like everybody knows what we are talking about. Tantra is a form of yoga that is based in the energetic body. Unlike hatha yoga or the yoga we are familiar with in the West, which is based in the physical body.
Right.
They have both the origins in East India. So however, we focus on the yoga of the energetic body. And what is more energetic than sexual life was energy that has brought us into this life? Without it, we wouldn't be speaking here.
Yeah.
So, and so what we can glance from Tantra is how we can become aware of that life force, because it runs through us just like blood runs through us. As we are not aware of our blood flow, we are not aware of our energy flow. So just for the audience, as the veins and the arteries are the grid for blood flow, the nervous system is the grid for energy flow. So then we want to become more aware of our nervous system in the sense of our sensations. Because when we say, oh, I'm tickly, or I'm tickling all over, or even when I feel hot or cold, or like, oh, when you touch me, it feels like electricity. That is what I'm talking about. That is how energy shows up in the human being, how we experience it.
Yeah.
And then it can show up in higher gradation, from just like an energy flow, like sitting here and listening and speaking, to then can be going high to a climax, a sexual climax. Or an ejaculatory moment, So in that sense, it's like we can learn to play that energy like we learn to play a flute, with different gradations, different levels, and then dwell on the different levels. And that expands the awareness, and that expands the connection of our sexual, emotional, mental, and spiritual self.
Yeah, I get that completely. I know that, there's been times when I've been with people where I didn't feel that tingling and it just wasn't there for whatever reason, who knows. But there's been also those times when I've been with somebody that like it is hair raising. Every hair on my body feels like it's standing on end, and I just want more of that. There's something that draws me towards that feeling.
And You know, Dan, that same listening can be evolved to listening and feeling the frequency and the vibration of our dreams and of what we want to create in our life. So once we start bringing consciousness in the sexual area as a meditation, the kernel, the foundations of that energy, creativity and pleasure, start showing up in areas of life that seem completely unrelated to sex in the simple process of living. So when I bring consciousness in a meditative aware state in that sexual intimacy, if I'm out in my world and I go, well, you know, I hate my job, 30 more years to retirement, that thought has a cascading effect on my sensations. As you said, the hair on my body, the feeling in my heart, you know, how my energy levels. So when I'm starting to listen to that fine kind of listening, I wouldn't even say that, because that just is a cascading negative effect. So that's what I mean. So things shift, not just in the bedroom, but everywhere. I mean, colors seem brighter, languages seem more, you know, defined. We just listen to what we're thinking more acutely.
Yeah. Yep. Getting in tune with whether if it's a higher consciousness or higher power or whatever that I have found that I can harness.
Yeah.
And I'm a handyman. I go
Oh,
around and work on people's houses and fix their stuff.
wow.
And I can walk up to the door and know I can trust my own intuition and my feelings about whether if this is going to be, I hate to say it, but if it's going to be a difficult person
Yeah.
or if this is going to be in within seconds,
Yes.
I can rely on that intuition to know what I'm walking into. And
Yeah.
I can do the same thing in relationship too, or friendships, you know, whatever it happens to be. Uh, I don't really, it's a funny thing well, in this 12-step world, there are people who are not going to get well. There just are. And whatever's happened, I have some intuition on that, and I hate it to some extent, you know, that I'm like, I don't think this guy's going to get better.
Yeah.
And it will cause me to put some distance between them, because if you hang around these circles long enough, what happens is I got a handful of guys who have died, right? They and I don't want to get too close to them because I don't want to pain,
Yeah.
you know,
So
as
people have to choose their path. You have an offering that you have. It's like you I don't say help people, I say offer. It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So those folks who are willing to come in your doors and want to do something for themselves, come on in. But those who want to just destroy and keep destroying, let them be.
Yep. And there's a little bit of a I don't know, a stigma around that says, you know, that you ought to give everybody your most. And I have a filter where I know where to affect my energy to
Yeah.
the best, and where I should save my energy and not put it in that direction.
Right. And that's totally legitimate and you know, very noble, and you know, that's great. You know, it's not, you're not doing anything negative there, I would say.
Yeah. Me neither. I'm okay with it.
Good. Yeah, that's the key. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah. So let's further build on that
Let's do that.
integration. Yeah, because we spoke early in the conversation about the reintegration or the returning to wholeness. You know, that recovery is all about that. Because when we feel whole, we feel well. We are ourselves, and we can really use that, what we are equipped with, our physical being, our emotional capacities, you know, our creative spark. We can then use that more fully than being preoccupied with some, you know, regressive behavior, or being just feeling not well, be that physical dis-ease or mental dis-ease. And so in the tantric practice, what I mentioned earlier, the physical, sexual, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions, that this is what we get to explore into. And of course, on the journey, we discover where we may have blocks, where we may have resistance, where we may have fears, where we may have numbed out, you know, and awaken ourselves on all of these levels, in all of these dimensions. Sometimes that may bring things up from, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or emotional abuse from our childhood. Or it may bring up unresolved matters of a relationship. Sometimes even when a partner may have passed away, that completion hasn't been made for the one who stayed left here on this planet. And so to bring healing to that, whatever is not in balance, that is related to our intimate self, not just sexually intimate self, but like, losing a partner in life, a spouse or a loved one, that can bring up, great grief and loss, and to heal from that. And so sometimes people could be a man or a woman, come to us where this happened, that they had a loss of a partner in their life. And then that they create a possibility for themselves through the work of where they can let go, and not let go only in terms of from their mental understanding, but from the grief from their heart and their grief from their body. And given that the tantric practice is such an integrated practice, where we touch into the physical body, into the energetic body, into the emotional body and the mental body all at once, so the whole being can be cleansed and cleared and freed, so that they can come back to a new aliveness, and then create, if they want to bring a new partner into their life, wonderful. Often it's just connecting with their beloved within, and to have that freedom.
Yeah, I like that. I like to think of a lot of analogies on where like our being is like a hard drive, just like this computer is. And when life experiences, they attach to that hard drive. And now and again, I need to defrag that thing and get the negative stuff either moved to the side or discarded. And everything in life that I experience is going to leave that little footprint on me. And I happen to have you used to talk about that. I have a dear friend. We have a program here in Louisville, Kentucky, where we are offering the 12 steps to everyone, not just alcoholics and addicts. You can just be, what I like to say, do you have room for more in your life? Do you need to cleanse your soul? And we do that. And we've also kind of, in the beginning, it was a bunch of guys who started it. And typical 12-step recovery, you kind of don't sponsor across gender lines for obvious reasons. It just causes some complications. But I have a gal that I had sponsored and have sponsored since for almost 5 years now. And she just this past year lost her husband. And he's was 45 or 46, lost her husband to cancer, and to watch that grief and to try and be the, hell, I don't know how to do that, right? I don't I don't know how to do the role that I've been assigned, but I hear a lot, it just instantly made me think of her on the loss of a loved one, and like, how do you my podcast about recovery.
Yeah.
How do you recover from that? Because as a 45-year-old gal, there's plenty of time left.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ideally. Yeah.
And
Well,
it's essential to heal that. It may take 2 or 3 or 4 years. I mean, it doesn't necessarily happen quickly, for some
Mhm.
shorter, for some longer, and to heal that. Because the opening to another soul fully is only available if one's own soul has healed from the past. So yeah, it's very essential.
yeah, and it's important for people to go through the grieving process, and at some point you can make a decision to, leave the grieving, to get on with your life and remember those who've gone on ahead. Because I never say dead, it's gone on ahead, because we all got to go that way.
Yeah,
So
that's why I like to the next adventure,
yeah,
whatever that is.
exactly, whatever that next adventure. I love that.
I don't know what it is, but I fully believe that.
That's true. And, like you were saying earlier, Dan, everything has a little imprint. So we start out with this, infinite possibility, infinite potential. We're born, we're in the womb, and it's womb
Yeah,
surf.
it's clean slate, there's nothing's been on it yet.
Nothing's been on it. And then suddenly we're born, we're, bright lights whacked on the bottom. Some guys are getting their wee-wees cut. And you're thinking, send me back. And then you have all this stuff that happens, your family you're born into, the neighborhood, all the variable things, the good days, bad days, sunny days, money days, no money days. And then you get to a point in your life where it's like all that stuff is where you're looking into the world from. But the good news is we have, and what connects us to this universe that goes on forever is our imagination. This capacity to imagine, dream, visualize something that's never been before in your life. And that's our lineage. I mean, that infinite universal, thinking, that consciousness is our lineage. So the process to do it in these carbon unit physical forms is learning to be a curious witness of this place we look into the world from, to begin to flatten and be with all the stuff that comes up, like when she has the grief that comes up and the sadness that comes up, to have a way to be able, and we teach those practices of getting to the breath, allowing that to be, crying, being sad, and then
Feeling your feelings.
and then move on. Exactly. And that's what happens as we start to get distance, as we develop what we call this witness state of mind. And we can give your audience a little example of what we're talking about there, and a little practice, a short practice, if you're willing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I meant actually, my notepad got away from me, but I heard you use that word witness,
Yes.
and I like that.
So the witness state of mind is where we are just watching the thoughts without what we call the cascading effect of the thought. So I'm in traffic, and now it's the traffic, this damn traffic, and I'm pissed off, and I'm anxious, and my heart's racing, and I'm sweaty, and okay, that from the thought about the traffic. Now, when I let go of that, these are just cars in the road, and I'm doing what I need to do to get where I need to go, guess what goes away? All of the anxiety, all the upset, all of the make wrong, all of that story making. So the witness is being able to watch the thinking, and the thinking doesn't stop, but we can learn to watch it without the total felt sense of the thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ways to begin to do that is this practice I'm going to share with your audience right now. So if we're willing, this will only take a minute or less, okay?
Absolutely.
Everyone who's listening, if we could just sit up as straight as we're comfortable being on top of our sit bones, great. And your eyes can be open, closed, or soft focus. If you can put a hand on your belly, and there's a particular way I want you to breathe. So as you breathe in, as this is through the nose, breathe in and extend the diaphragm or the belly into your hand like a big balloon on your inhalation. So really feel your belly extend into your hand. And then on your exhalation, follow with your awareness your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Here we go. Great. So seated comfortably, eyes open, closed, or soft focus. Following with your awareness, your breath coming into your nose, down your trachea, lungs extending into your diaphragm and belly like a big balloon on your inhalation. Really feel that extension. Following with your awareness, your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Stay with that manner of breathing. I'm going to keep speaking. Feeling the rise of your belly in your inhalation. Flattening of your belly on your exhalation through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Letting your thoughts come, letting your thoughts go. As thoughts come in, acknowledge them, let them be, don't engage. Bring your focus back to your breath. Following your breath into your nose, trachea, lungs, extending into your diaphragm and belly like a big balloon on your inhalation. Following with your awareness, your breath back up and out through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Stay with it. You are your own witness to any thoughts, conversations, interpretations, or meaning. For these few moments, just breathing and being. Giving the busy mind a rest for a few moments. Rise of your belly on your inhalation. Flattening of your belly on your exhalation.
And while you're breathing in and out, take a moment and notice how you're feeling right now. Notice how your body is feeling. And notice any sensation or the absence of sensations in your body. Just notice. Now notice your emotional state, the state of your emotions. And notice your state of mind, your state of thought. And when you feel ready, come back, open your eyes. And then, if you would be so kind and just share how you may feel right now at the completion of this short practice.
You know, the breath is an amazing thing. I feel better than I did at the beginning of this podcast, and I was not feeling too well. And at the moment, that released. I have been a fan of breathing exercises since I have been taught those in those early meditation meetings that I attended. One of the tools that I tend to coach is the 4x4 or box breathing. One of the two: 4 in, hold, 4 out, exhale, hold for 4, and just keep on doing that 4 thing just to redirect my energy. And yeah, all of a sudden I feel better.
One of the powerful things about the breath is without it, we wouldn't be here. That's for sure.
You can go days without food. You can go days without water, but you cannot go very long without breath.
A minute or two, maybe some people, if they practice 6 minutes or something. But no, that type of breathing where we're bringing the breath down in the diaphragm and extending the diaphragm behind the belly requires our mind to think, to physiologically do that. And for most people, we can only do it for about 3 breaths before our mind goes squirrel, busy in this. But the longer you do it, the longer you can stay with just watching the breath and being in the breath consciously and watching the thought without the total felt sense of the thought. The parasympathetic breathing is a distraction for a moment, the pause for a moment from the busy mind. And so that's one of the powerful things about that particular type of breathing. And if you do 10 belly breaths like that in the morning before you get out of bed, and then watch your day, the typical things that might get you, like traffic or somebody at your work that kind of gets you going, you'll notice yourself start to rise up emotionally and energetically. And then you can just flatten that out and just not let that get on you, because you can notice it much more quickly. Just try it.
I will.
1 week, 10 belly breaths before you get out of bed, and watch how quickly you can come off of when you have those, those moments.
Yeah, that one of the other practices has been prayer and meditation for me in the mornings. That's something I start my day with every day. And I get a new guy and I ask him to do that, and you'd think I'd asked him to run a marathon every morning or something. But I said, just trust me, okay? And I don't care what you pray to; it doesn't make any difference to me at all. And if you in meditation, I know you got this thought of a guy sitting on a cushion with his legs crossed, chanting Om.
The nails.
and you can do that if you want, but just the stillness, the starting my day off with that pace and that stillness, because as I recovered, I looked back on my life, because most of what I see is in the review mirror. You know, I don't see me very well today. I think Elsbeth spoke of that, about not seeing ourselves very well. Um, uh, I was more like the Tasmanian devil when I left the house. You know, I was shooting to the shower, shooting by the coffee machine, shooting out the, and and then I carried that pace with me the rest of the day. And as I start my day with this different pace, then I get to carry it with me the rest of the day, and I become unmesswithable at some level. You know, there's
Unshakable. That's
yeah,
nice.
it
You know,
doesn't. But what you brought to me, and it's not new, but it's new to me today, is the expansion of the diaphragm down into the belly, to actually deep breathe that and come back out. So I'm definitely going to start utilizing that in my morning practice.
and if anybody ever says, Dan, well, what's the difference, Dan, between praying and meditating? Well, praying is speaking to God, meditating is listening.
Yeah, right. Yep,
So
exactly.
there you go. Okay, got it.
Yeah. We have
So
so many
let's-
guys come in with such a, that if I was going to say what's the biggest block, is that whole spiritual thought thing about the G word or the J word, or we've been so traumatized. So many people have been so traumatized by getting that beat down our throats, that I find that's one of the biggest hurdles I have to deal with, is that, like, when I'm talking to you about spirituality, you are not thinking about what I am thinking about. You get
Right,
to
right.
you get to do your own thing here, and it really does. It does. I am convinced it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the label you put on it.
Exactly, the label. Yeah, you got it. The
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
The story. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are all earthly and heavenly beings. And back again to that life-giving energy, when we speak about the connection of the sexual with the spiritual, we wrote a book several years ago, which is called Sexual Enlightenment. And it's this juxtaposition of the sexual with enlightenment, which they usually don't go together. Just like sexual and spiritual, they belong to different places. The sexual belongs into the bedroom, the spiritual belongs into the church, the synagogue, the mosque, the temple. How we look at it is that each of us is this temple in our physical body, and we have an aspect of earthliness and heavenliness. We are both matter and we are energy, frequencies.
Spirit.
And so that we can actually tap into ourselves, listen to our sexual physical self and to our spiritual self. So they can support each other, communicate with each other. So our consciousness communicates with our sexual desire self. And, the sexual desire self gives us a lot of juice in life, which is the passion. And the sexual physical, in that sense, can then inform the spiritual. It's not that one or the other is more important, because we are both simultaneously. The question is, how can I be aware or become more aware of both dimensions so that they can dance together, instead of, cutting one out or say, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, or the sexual is sinful. I mean, the sexual is that energy, again, back to that has brought us into this life. And so our work is very much focused on assisting people in reconnecting and reintegrating the sexual spiritual self, because there what's available is, again, this deeper unity and wholeness. And so when we speak about sexual meditation, it is about cultivating this practice so that through that breath that we are just had the pleasure to be guided in by Freddy, we cultivate that breath, because the breath is the carrier of energy. Without breathing, we said it earlier, we die. So if breath and energy go together when we die, they must go together when we are alive. And we employ this in the tantric practice, and the sexual meditation is a meditation that comes out of the tantric practice, where we learn to witness our wonderful sexual life force energy and that feeling, that orgasmic feeling, that, enlivening feeling, pleasurable feeling. And we can breathe that sensation up into the heart. We can learn to breathe it up into our third eye, into our consciousness self. And then on the exhalation, send it back down so our consciousness self connects and imbues our sexual pleasure self. And so then this is a dance. And this is a practice that can be cultivated. We need to practice the breath. We need to practice to become aware of our sexual energy.
Excuse me.
Also our aroused energy, and not just get swept away by it, which may be wonderful. And Freddy can talk more about this, particularly for the men.
Yeah, I want to say, if I could, it is different for men and for women in the practice of learning to harness and work with our sexual energy in a way that opens something up beyond the wonderfulness that it already does as a meditation. So for guys, we start out, it's like there's two emotions that are okay for guys socially, and that's fucking or fighting, right?
You're right.
But being intimate or being weepy or being, nurturing, that's not like, you don't do that. That's not guy stuff. Even though we have those feelings, it's just not socially acceptable. And then for women, and also for guys, we start feeling in our penises or our lingams, which is the Sanskrit term for penis. It means wand of light, much more endearing than dickhead, right? And so in the tantric practices and all the variations there are, and we're TantraNova, Tantra Nu, so we're integrating Eastern approach and Western approach to transformation. The primary eating is for men to learn to separate ejaculation from orgasm. And that, for a lot of guys, is all they've heard about Tantra. Oh, I can last longer, or I'll be a better lover, or it'll be something spiritual. But what you do in the practice of learning to do that will inform your lovemaking. And in a meditation aspect of it, in learning to do that for the man, he begins to separate the addictions that we have around, is it too big? Is it too small? Is it too long or too short? Is it this or is that? Love, possessiveness, jealousy, all of that's, it's loaded. I mean, the sexual piece is loaded. So when we start doing some of the practices to learn to separate ejaculation from orgasm, which will allow one to not just last longer, because a lot of guys can do that. It's learning to circulate what we call this orgasmic nectar consciously to the heart, on up through with your partner. And then that becomes like a microcosmic orbit where you're actually circulating that orgasmic nectar, not just waiting for that 3-second orgasm, but playing with the edge of the sword of that. And that's a whole nother ether, man. It's like, that's a sexual meditation that's beyond the beyond. And it's attainable to anybody in a body who's willing to just put in a little bit of effort learning some of the mechanics of it.
Yeah. It touches on that. It touches me to think about it, because I can remember at times of having these whirlwind encounters with somebody, and that's not a one-night stand that does that. That's a connectedness and intimacy with some one person, and getting there, but not really. What I think about is that I really was educated to a point to be able to like cultivate it all the way.
Yeah, and most folks aren't. I mean, it's not something that's common knowledge. We don't get, as much as we learn about everything else. The sex thing is kind of like, here are your ovaries, here are your testes, this is your penis. kind of good luck, you know.
Good luck. That's it. Yeah. Go figure it out.
Yeah, we had a youth program for a few years here where we were working with younger people, like going into their puberty, you know, and we weren't teaching them so much the sexual stuff, but at some point, 3 days into this 2-week program, I would take the guys and I'd have them in a room, you know, and Elsbeth would have the ladies, the girls, and I'd say to the guys, okay, we're going to put together as a homework practice for you guys, all this, you know, meditative breathing and muscle work together and exercise. So I say, so by show of hands, how many of you guys masturbate? Nobody raised their hands.
They're
I'm
all
over
liars.
50, right, I'm over 50 and I masturbate. They all laugh and raise their hand. So I talk about, you know, I use this puppet to show them how to, you know, do the process of, you know, staving off the ejaculatory process. And so they go home that night and they're supposed to do this and not ejaculate. So they come back, oh man, I didn't know I could do that. It lasted so long and it blew my mind. And I believe these are going to be better men as they grow older and become mature, because now they won't just be run by the erection or just get into sex and have a baby unconsciously or take advantage of a woman because they can't, quote, control themselves, you know. So that's the stuff, that's the kind of learning that you wish that was just part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it's you know, it's undereducated for sure, for damn sure. You know, I was playing around in those categories way before mom and dad had the birds and bees talk with me. You know, and I fully understand it. My too. I have a 18-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son,
Oh,
and I know I've done more because of my recovery on being open with them and talking to them and creating an open environment that we can talk about things. But it's so taboo. You can see that they don't want to talk about it, right? You know, such a weird subject, you know. It's
yeah.
tough to touch on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so of course we teach this to adult men. So Freddy teaches an all men's workshop called Men, Sex, and Power, where he works for 2 full days with guys. And part of that workshop is not only to expand their emotional expressions and capacities and willing to feel, you know, the range of emotions, but also how to connect more deeply and channel their wonderful testosterone, life-giving energy, so that they can support their physical well-being, their emotional health, their mental focus, and connecting to their spiritual self. And in the process, learn how to forego ejaculation, because every ejaculation for a man is a tremendous depletion of life force energy. This is why men want to rest afterwards, you know, or, you know, zone out in front of the TV. There's a disconnect if they are with a partner. There's a disconnect with a partner. Not that a man wants to get disconnected. It's just a biological thing, the energy left. And then it takes a little while, less for the younger men, more for you know, men growing older, and to be replenished. So, but it is not only essential for the men to mature, for a man to be integrated between his sex or become integrated between his sex and his heart, which is cultivated through that sexual meditation that he can do by himself, or we also teach it in partner work where there is one giver and the receiver. And in this particular ritual, the man is the receiver, the woman or the partner of them is the same with same-sex couples. The partner is the giver, supporting him, and through touch and through coaching breath. Of course, it takes on a new dimension doing this practice with a partner than doing it by yourself, because when we are by ourselves, we are always more in control. When a partner is giving to a man, then that really calls this man into being open to open up, to receive, you know, and that can feel vulnerable, you know. And so this partner practice, we call it the lingam ritual, you know, lingam, the magic wand, the wand of light, the penis. That is that ritual, we call it lingam ritual, that can open up whole new spaces for men.
And this doesn't take the place of your mutual lovemaking stuff, all the quickies in the morning or whatever else we do with sex. This is a particular ritual practice that's designed to open things up in other areas of your life. And as I say, it will inform your lovemaking as well, all of the practice pieces that go to it. But anybody in a body can get this, man. It's wonderful. It's good stuff.
I really want to emphasize that, you know, you spoke about yourself, Dan, in terms of your own evolution, you know, and the recovery process for you that really has opened up whole new possibilities, including what difference you can make in the world, you know, and impact assisting other people in living their life to the fullest. So that for a man to mature as a human being and as a man, is a key dimension of that integration of sex with heart. Because when he can channel his wonderful life force aroused energy into his heart center, his heart opens up, literally. And
Heartgasms.
he becomes more present to himself. You know, it's not just like, oh, I have to let go of this intense feeling in my magic wand. I can, you know, be with this and stay present to myself. Then he can bring this to his partner. So most women, when they want to connect, they start feeling it in the heart center. And Freddie mentioned earlier, when a man wants to connect, he starts feeling it in his sexual center. There's nothing good about it, and nothing good or bad about it. It's just how it is. So when we want to connect, we both want to connect. He starts feeling it in his sexual center. I start feeling it in my heart center. We want the same, but we come from different loci. I come from, it comes from the sex. So like two ships passing in the night. So through the tantric practice that is then, you know, learned through sexual meditation, the man breathes up from his sexual center into his heart.
That channeling that energy, that sexual energy.
When his heart opens, I can feel it. Then my heart opens.
And she can trust.
And when my heart opens, my sexual center
much easier.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yes.
And the sexual center of a woman is called yoni, Y-O-N-I in Sanskrit. So we have the lingam, the wand, and we have the yoni, the sexual center of the woman, which means sacred space. Much more endearing than, you know, the clinical name vagina or all kinds of not so pleasing words for her. So the wand and the sacred space, you know, these words are endearing. They, you know, really elicit a kind of honoring.
Yeah.
So then also when we are connected like this, we have a circuit. And it's all about circuitry, both within, just as we did it with the breath earlier, breathing up and breathing down, you know, when we were breathing into the belly and then back up, where the energy moves through us. I said earlier, energy moves with the breath. We then can also do this with a partner, you know, so that we breathe in together, he breathes up into my heart, and then we breathe out together and it moves down. And then we have, again, this circular motion. And when we do synchronized breath together, after a short while, it feels like we are becoming one breath, heart, you know. So there are very particular practices for couples to connect, not only in the bedroom, but also in everyday life, to have this heart connection, because that is where everything opens up from.
Once we can start letting go of some of our stories and some of our beliefs, we can really see the connectedness that we are to everything. You know, that's one of the things that starts to open up in meditation, as you know, if we start to see that I'm no different than you. We all are from the same energy, you know.
Yeah.
And our stories are a little different, but once we get past our egos and our stories, it's just I'm you, you're me, and we're all connected, you know, it's all connected, everything.
Yeah.
And science has proven that out. So yeah, so that's what we've been doing, man.
That sounds super cool, you know, and I just I feel honored to have, because and my listeners will probably get, I don't know if they get tired of me hearing me say this, but to see these, to be introduced and to see these folks and meet them that are a force for the good in the world. Because if you watch the TV and you listen to the radio, you can think that this place, you know, is ready to crash and burn at any moment. And I continue to be introduced to people who are a force for good in the world. So thank you both for that. You know, Bill says in the big book, there's another line when he's talking about our sexual inventory that we all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. You know,
Mhm.
and he addresses that, and I think that was very brave of him to do that back in the time that book in 1939 was when that book was released. And when I work with men, uh, especially subsequent trips through the steps, because you go through the steps and you kind of get the monkey off your back, but the
Mhm.
point is to continue to do that on an interval so that you keep
Right.
the house clean and you keep the computer defragged and that.
Mhm.
And it got me thinking that my focus a lot lately has been when a guy's through it, when he's okay, he's not on the cliff ready to jump off anymore, right? He's a year or two sober and he's getting in his life together,
Mhm.
and he's in a relationship that I found myself focusing on that particular piece of it, of his sexual needs being met, where our, because when we do this work, we become bonded and he knows I'm a safe place to talk freely.
Mhm.
And that's a tough place to talk about, right? That's especially
Mhm.
with another man, right? Because your
Mhm.
ego and all that is all wound up in it. And to talk about, how's your sex life, buddy? How are you doing
Mhm.
there? And I thank you now, because I have some new tools. I always say my toolbox can't be full enough.
Yeah,
I,
exactly,
I
because
want my
that's where
toolbox as full as it can be, and I can
that's right.
give you new
Remember,
tools to.
a wise man knows, a person knows they can always learn something new. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
the thing is that because, like, you know, we were talking about men and how we are so verklempt, are, strung in terms of our emotional breath. But in the sexual piece is one of the one pieces where we can be open and loving and vulnerable and receptive. But if we're still stuck in one dimension of the sexual, like to drive towards that orgasm, then that's not really expanding anything. So these practices can be a real
Yeah.
assistance in what they're learning from the big book, as you say. You
Yep.
know,
And to bring that relationship together, to where
Mhm.
that they, that's you know, I know for a fact that there's a wall in between so many of my friends who are coupled, that there's a wall in there, and to collapse that wall, one of the places is in their intimacy with one
That's right.
another, and it's more, and as you said, it's not just sex, it's not just the act, it's not that necessarily, but to drive those blocks out of there creates a better, and at some level my feeling is that these people, as a result of sex, they have children. And those children are going to become much more healthier children when their mom and dad have that kind of relationship. And that's actually where my heart is, more so today, is that if you two adults want to screw up your life, it's okay, but don't mess with him or her. Let's give them
Yeah.
all that they need to, in order to come to mature in as healthy a manner as they can.
Yeah,
Makes me tear up a little bit.
no, it's really wonderful to think about the children and the moving forward of the lineages, and how we can play a part in making a difference there. Our book, by the way, is on Audible, so people who like to multi
Awesome.
can do that.
I'm
And
an Audible file, man. I am hitting 100 books this year right now.
Yeah.
listening to 100 books. And my goal this year was to listen to 100 by the end of the year. And I beat my goal.
That's great. Yeah, because you could be working or working out or doing anything and just still getting the information.
I'm a huge fan of it. I know some people can't seem to, we're all wired a little different, right? And different things, and some people can't, and maybe their work life, let's say if you're looking at a lot of words while you're working, it'd be tough to absorb them, right? If your job involved reading or numbers or something like that. But my job, I have a wood shop in my backyard where I do custom woodwork. And when I'm not doing that, I'm out handymanning for people. And the two channels can exist together. And I can, like I tell people, some guys say, you're not really reading a book when you're doing that. And I'm like, well, I could write you a book report. You want me to prove it to you? And I'm blessed with a manner of life that allows me to absorb the books while I'm working with my hands. And I do. I almost sometimes wonder, my sponsor, my wonderful sponsor is a man that walked into my life back 9 years ago, and he is in May going to celebrate 40 years of sobriety. And and golly, man, that relationship between him and I, and to have that man to man, that's another thing. We're kind of focusing here on a little bit of the man and woman relationship, but it's been so important to me to have another man in my life to talk to and to be able to be free. There's another line in a big book. It says, you must be honest. You must be entirely honest with somebody to live long and happily. And I got this guy in my life. He also works in the field. He's a substance abuse counselor at a local treatment place here. So I always like to give him and I know he listens to every single one of my podcasts. He's maybe my biggest fan. He loves that we have these conversations that open up beyond what, like, just stopping drinking and drugging. That's not what it's about. That's just a piece of it. Is what we're going to do with our life once we get that under our belt and become as I probably stole it from him, become what we can be on this trip on this big blue marble.
That's beautiful.
So Dan, what about if we just share with the audience, the gift we have for them?
Absolutely.
Be okay? So out of the conversation, we thought it could be really useful to have something that could support you, everyone who is listening today, in how to start practicing this sexual meditation that we talked about. So we put a video class together that is called An Introduction to Sexual Meditation. And I understand it's going to be in the show notes, the link.
Yep, I can do that. Is that information in my email?
Yes, I sent it to you this morning. So towards the later end, I can resend it. So the video class, the gift is the Introduction to Sexual Meditation, where people can actually learn practices, the breathing practice and how to focus your mind. And so there are different practices in that class that you then, each of you who is listening, can put to work and bring into your life. Then also, if you as a listener are further interested in learning about TantraNova, you can reach us at www.tantranova.com. That is TantraNova.com, TantraNova, the new Tantra.
Yeah, I also see that as your name in the participants column here, so I don't have to write it down. I got it.
Great,
Good.
great. And then, of course, what Freddy said earlier, the book Sexual Enlightenment, available on Amazon, both in paperback and also in audio format.
Man, I love that it's on audio form. I don't know what it is, but I grew up as a reader for some reason. My grandparents had lots of books in their attic, and I love to sit up there and read. But for whatever reason today, I cannot sit and read anymore. If it doesn't come in that, I will, but I struggle with it. So thank you for making that a part of
Available.
putting it on Audible, making that Audible version available. Personally, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah, thank-
Dan, for having us today.
You're very welcome. I thank you both. It's been a joy. And when I sit there, I don't know, 15 minutes before the podcast, I was thinking, oh man, I'm not feeling good. And now I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold on, where'd it go?
I haven't sniffled in a while either, so I think we're working.
Yeah. There's something about this medium that I found. It raises my vibration every single time I do it. There's a guy coming over going to tell his 12-step story at 6 p.m. in a couple hours tonight,
Wow.
and it just is. It just lifts me to
Yeah.
hear a guy come here and tell that story, and to do this stuff where we're talking about making lives better.
Yes.
And just frankly, golly, is it not a topic among everybody I know, is their relationship with their significant other, and frankly the lack of intimacy, or the troubles, the struggles, and that kind of thing. It's a common thing all the time that I hear. I'm blessed that higher power sends me lots of people to help. And I get that opportunity to do that, to play that role. I thank higher power every day allow me to have a role of helping other people be better. And this sexual relationship stuff is just like broken record player. It's just all the time. It's a problem.
It's loaded. It's everywhere for sure. Well, thanks again.
Yep. Thank you all. It was great meeting you.
So
And this will come out Sunday morning at 5 a.m. I always do I put out new content every Sunday morning at 5 a.m.
Wow.
So wherever you want to look at it. And I do want to make sure, are you okay if I put this video portion of it on YouTube too?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
Good. So it will be both of those places Sunday, a week from today.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work, man.
You as well. Thank you very much.
We'll do.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.